Hello and welcome back to another episode of DLC. My name is Joey. Today we're going to be talking about not one, not two, but three very different games. First up, we have Coin Pusher Casino by Trees Nuts Games. As always, thank you for the review copy of the game to Trees Nuts and our friends over at Game.Press. Next up, we have BloodReaver by Hellbite Studios. Once again, thank you for that review copy. And finally, All Will Fall by All Parts Connected. So thank you to all three of the developers and our friends over at Game.Press for the review copies of the game. Let's get into it. So first up, we have Coin Pusher Casino. And it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a digital version of those arcade coin pusher machines where you drop coins and slowly watch them slide forward, hoping that the physics gods bless you with a payout. The game expands on the formula slightly with a slot machine style progression. There are unlocks, different tables, a casino aesthetic which was quite enjoyable, and some very basic light upgrade systems. And honestly, for the first 20 minutes of the game, it's kind of satisfying. But after that, you'll get the same little dopamine hit you get from the real arcade machines. And you end up doing what I did, looking at the clock and thinking, what have I actually done with the last half an hour? I think you will end up in a weird trance like I did, where coin goes in, number goes up, repeat, but there's not a lot of endgame here. The things that the game does pretty okay. There are some flashy effects, and the animations in the game are pretty smooth. It feels intentionally overstimulating the way that real gambling machines or arcade machines are. One of the very big downsides to it is it has a very mobile game energy to it. There's loads of flashy UI, constant sounds and numbers flying everywhere. After a while it starts to feel a lot less immersive and a little bit just noisy. The game gets quite repetitive quite quickly. There's not a lot of depth in the game and progression feels quite shallow. To me, this feels like a mobile game and a time killer rather than an actual game. Now, that being said, it captures the arcade coin pusher surprisingly well. It's weirdly relaxing in very short bursts, and obviously with it being a coin pusher game, it's very simple and quick to pick up and understand immediately. So, final verdict, Coin Pusher is okay. There's short-term appeal, especially if you enjoy those games in real life and you don't want to waste your money. But beyond the initial novelty, there just isn't enough variety or depth to keep it interesting long-term. It's certainly not terrible, it's just quite easy to get bored once you realise you've basically seen everything it has to offer in the first couple of minutes. So next up we have BloodReaver. BloodReaver is a co-op zombie shooter that feels very heavily inspired by the classic era of Call of Duty Zombies, and honestly, I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. Instead of trying to reinvent the genre with a million progression systems, battle pass mechanic, crafting trees and 15 million currencies, it focuses very heavily on the basics: surviving waves, buying weapons, unlocking areas, and killing zombies with your friends, and sometimes I think that's all you need for a game like this. The core loop is going to feel very familiar if you played older zombie games. You survive very easy basic rounds at the start. Each bullet or hit will earn you currency, and you can use that currency to upgrade your gear, open new areas, and the whole idea in the game is to try not to get overwhelmed by the horde of zombies. The pacing feels really good because of how straightforward everything is. It's not a huge onboarding process, there's no overwhelming menu, no systems layered on top of systems layered on top of systems. You just load in and you start surviving. There was a point maybe 15 minutes in where I backed myself into a terrible position. I was panicking, there were zombies flooding through narrow corridors, and then suddenly it hit me. This feels like original old school COD zombies. Not new modern zombies where you need to open a spreadsheet to understand what's happening, but just a simple map, chaos, panic, and desperately trying to survive to the next round, and it captured that vibe really well. I actually felt quite nostalgic considering this is a brand new game. Combat feels really solid in BloodReaver for the most part. Guns have a decent punch, enemy waves escalate nicely, it doesn't feel like you're coming up with a brick wall of difficulty. Movement is simple but really responsive. What I really like about this game is it's not revolutionary, but it doesn't need to be. The whole game succeeds because it understands what people liked about the classic Call of Duty zombie modes, and that's simplicity and replayability. Visually, BloodReaver goes for a bit of a dark, gritty horror aesthetic. Maps are dimly lit, slightly claustrophobic, and designed around movement and pressure. There's definitely some indie roughness here and there. The animations can feel a little bit stiff, and some effects lack a little bit of polish, but honestly, when you're mid-round and trying not to die, you stop noticing these things really quickly. The atmosphere does loads to support the gameplay without getting in the way. So the game itself, as I said, captures a really good classic COD Zombies energy. It's simple to understand, and it's an easy gameplay loop to get a grasp of. I didn't get to try the co-op mode, but I imagine that would be really fun as well. I think where BloodReaver really succeeds is this main point. It doesn't overcomplicate itself. It understands that something in modern zombie games sometimes forget. Not everything needs to be enormously complicated. It's just a fun, straightforward co-op zombie game. And if you miss the simpler era of Call of Duty Zombies, there's a really good chance you'll have a good time with this one. I think I'd really recommend it. Finally, we come to All Will Fall. All Will Fall is a physics-based city-building survival game set in a flooded world where humanity is desperately trying to survive on unstable vertical structures above the ocean. And out of the three, this was easily my favourite game. Because the second you start building, you realise the entire thing is basically, what happens if city building games were also giant physics disasters waiting to happen? And it's brilliant. While you're playing the game, you're balancing resource management, population needs, and structural stability. Every decision matters twice. Is this efficient? And is the entire structure about to collapse into the ocean? That second question creates a load of tension. At one point while I was playing this, I thought I'd made a really smart expansion. I added a couple of extra buildings and everything looked stable. I was feeling pretty confident about my city. And then just one support failed, which caused an entire section to shift, which caused an entire section to snap. And within about 10 seconds, half of my beautiful city had fallen into the ocean like the world's worst Jenga tower. It was genuinely one of the best disaster moments I've had in a management game in ages. What All Will Fall does so well is it makes you think that the physics aren't just a gimmick. They completely change how you think about what you're doing. You can't just build efficiently, you have to build carefully. And there's a constant balancing act between expansion, stability, and your resource needs. And because of that, even small mistakes will spiral you into complete chaos. Every disaster in this game starts with the phrase, "I'll just add one more thing." And suddenly the structure leans slightly, the people in your city start panicking, supports buckle, and everything collapses. It's really fun to watch. Visually, the game has a really good style. It's got bright oceans, rusted industrial structures, layered vertical cities, and there's a lovely contrast between the colourful environment and the constant threat of catastrophic failure. Watching buildings physically strain and shift under pressure does add so much personality to the world. And unlike some physics game where destruction feels random, here it feels understandable. When something collapses, you know exactly why it happened and entirely why it was your fault. What the game does really well is the fantastic physics systems, the extremely satisfying disasters. It's got really strong survival management gameplay, and there's a load of tension between growth and stability of your city. It's an easy recommendation for strategy and simulation fans. All Will Fall for me was an absolute surprise. It took a really familiar mechanic in city building and completely transforms it by making the physics such a big character in the screen. The result of what you have is tense, funny, chaotic, and very, very satisfying. And honestly, I'd highly recommend it. As I said, out of the 3 games that I played for this episode, it's the one that I'm definitely going to go back to right after I finish recording. As always, thank you so much to the developers of Coin Pusher Casino, Trees Nuts Games, BloodReaver, Hellbite Studios, and All Will Fall, which is all parts connected, and our friends over at Game.Press for the 3 review copies. I had a lot of fun with these 3 games, and I'll definitely be going back to All Will Fall almost immediately. My name's been Joe Fitz. If you've played any of these games, get in touch with us and let us know. And as always, look after yourself, and God bless.